Welcome to the Android Device Manufacturer Fireside Chat. My name is Eric Chu. I'm responsible for many of the developer initiatives that some of you may be familiar with. I'm also the moderator for this session. So the goal of this session really is provide a venue so that our device manufacturer partners can give you an overview in terms of what they've been doing with Android and where we're going, and also give you an opportunity to ask questions on some of the great Android products that they're making. So with us on the far right, we have Bill Max. He is the Sony Ericsson's head of developer and partner for North America. Next to him, we have Ciaran Rochford. He is Samsung's director of mobile R&D group. We also have Joon Kang, who is LG Electronics, head of strategic alliance. And then on the far left, we have Fraleigh, who is Motorola's Director of Developer Platforms and Services. So the format of this session is that each one of them is going to spend about 5 minutes to kind of talk about what they're doing with Android, why Android is important, where they're taking Android within the product portfolio. And then when they're done, then we're going to open the floor for questions. I'm also told that I need to kind of let you know that if you want to kind of monitor the live notes and also enter questions in the wave, please go to http://bit.ly/waveio. Okay, with that, why don't we start with Bill?
Hi, everybody. I've been having a great time at this conference because it's pretty much the largest gathering that we know about of strictly Android developers, although there's obviously a lot of you that are developing for more than one platform. So I'll just talk for a few minutes about how Sony Ericsson sees Android, the products that we're coming out with, and our hopes really for this platform in the future. So we've been working on it for some time. I think we were an early adherent of going Android in our product portfolio. As you guys probably know, we've been a headset company for a long time present in many markets, making products based on a lot of different kinds of software platforms. But as our CEO has recently said, Android is really going to be our emphasis going forward because we think that it's really architected for the future from a technical point of view and also hopefully from a business point of view. It's got its own interesting aspects to it, and we are coming to market in a big way in 2010. We take a certain approach to doing products where we think there are certain things that we're good at that are in line with our kind of identity, and we've really worked very hard to bring some of those capabilities to our Android products, working with Google along the way, and we'll continue to try and make the platform work better and make really the template for you as developers work better to give you more opportunities to create things. Because we do fundamentally believe that one of the things that an open platform like Android gives is the ability to put the innovation in your hands that are going to help to really sell our products in the future. So the products that we're bringing to market in 2010 that kind of reflect our approach to Android are ones, the first of them being our flagship, the X10, which is now shipping in a bunch of different places in the world. It's the fastest selling smartphone in the history of Japan. Sir Howard Stringer was talking some smack earlier about that, I guess, compared to the iPhone. And it's coming to market everywhere. One of the things that I can say to you is that all of our Android products are going to be coming out not just globally, but also in the United States during 2010. The X10 is a product that has a lot of fantastic capabilities, the things people think Sony Ericsson's really good at, like imaging, multimedia, the idea of entertainment, and things we can do with the device. So we've really started with the strong Android base and added things to it. For instance, we have the capability of doing face recognition and video scene recognition right out of the camera module. These are things that we're bringing to market to really help the handset be really great, but we also want these kinds of technologies to be things that we share with you. So other products that are now out, and they're going to be coming to this part of the world as well as everywhere else. You can see in our OEM sandbox downstairs are of a very different form factor than the X10, which is a big, beautiful 4-inch device, 4-inch screen device, which is another statement I want to make about Android. We're bringing the X10 Mini and Mini Pro out, and if you see those products, they're really, really taking Android in a totally new direction, which is, I think, very important. That announcement that there are 100,000 activations going on every day with Android is only going to continue if we take Android into every corner of the mobile portfolio. And for hundreds of millions of people in the world, they want devices like this. So we want to take all the power and functionality of Android and make it accessible. And what we've done with these two new products is we've created a one-handed touch, which we consider to be very compact, very, very clever. Got a lot of interesting features with a unique four corners UI. But there's an important statement here. We haven't fragmented the platform to do this. We've made it so that your applications are going to run on this, and we've got developer guidelines and tools on our developer site, developer.sonyericsson.com, to help you bring your products to these kinds of devices, which are, I think, really, really going to help Android succeed in the long run while keeping it a unified platform so that all of your creations can run across those products. That's basically what I had to say.
Thank you, Bill.
Great. Well, it's great to be here as well. Again, my name is Ciaran Rochford. I'm the Director of Android at Samsung San Jose office. So it's great to be here at Google I/O this week and get a chance to meet so many active Android developers. I've met a lot of people in the pod, and I have a lot of hard questions already, so hopefully this will be more of a fireside than a grilling today, but I'm prepared. So one thing that happened to me recently that I wanted to share before I went to my main comments, and that is my mother-in-law asked me a question. She said, "Ciaran, what are you working on?" And I decided to pull out an Android handset and actually show her the handset. I went through multitasking and multiple home screens and how network location providers work. It all sounded great to me. I was very interested. But I could tell when I looked at my mother-in-law, she wasn't. And I could also tell she was kind of thinking about, how did my daughter end up with a guy like this? So luckily for me, though, when I started showing some of the apps created by you, the community, in relation to news, stock, weather, entertainment, she started to understand why this is important. And augmented reality was also something she really enjoyed. So again, this really re-emphasized to me that the Android developer community is at the heart of Android. And actually looks like my mother-in-law's heart now as well. So I've got 2 bonuses there. So I have 2 main points I want to cover. The first is Samsung's commitment to Android. I'm happy to say, as the second largest manufacturer in the world, that a large portion of our smartphones this year will be based on Android. I think it's clear to see that Android has moved from an early adopter platform to the mainstream. And with that will come a lot of opportunities for increased application download and sales. This will also bring new challenges in the area of device compatibility and developer support. I'm happy to say Samsung is actively working on these areas already. And speaking of handsets, I would like to speak a little bit about our new Galaxy S handset, which is available for view at our pod. This device has Samsung's new Super AMOLED display, which is WVGA in resolution. It also has a very thin form factor and saves power. The Galaxy S also comes with 16 gigabytes of internal storage, a 1 gigahertz CPU, and both front and rear facing cameras. And like my colleague here, Samsung's also looking to make sure those are exposed to you in terms of API, like front-facing camera. So you can take advantage and build new apps that are very creative. And again, drive that content to our users. So the second thing I want to talk about is Samsung's commitment to the Android developer community. I'm happy to announce that we're going to be extending our developer program, which is called Samsung Mobile Innovator, to cover Android this summer. It can be found online at innovator.samsungmobile.com. It'll have detailed technical specifications on our handsets and also provide direct support for developers. We want to make sure your apps run great on our handsets, so that's really our goal. We know this is important because we think Android developers are key to making end consumers want to use Android, and so that's why we need to provide this support. So to close, Samsung, as one of the original OHA members, is very excited by the growth and possibilities Android offers. And we look forward to working with you and the rest of the ecosystem to make sure it evolves and grows. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Should I stand or?
Anything you want. You can dance if you want.
Certainly, I'm not a bad, good dancer, so I'll just stand. First of all, thank you very much for hosting this wonderful event. I'm sure that everyone here is benefiting, a lot of great technology from Google, not only from the Android aspect, but from all over, technology arena. My name is Joon, Kang, leading the Android product development in San Jose office in LG Electronics. As you know that, we are working very closely with Google, not only for Android, but also a lot of different consumer devices, such as, netbook and TVs, and even the home networking system. And we are also looking to some partnership working on the getting into the emerging marketplaces where our LG brand is so strong. So coming back to Android, we launched the Optimus. I'm not sure how many people are aware of it, but we launched the product in Europe and globally last month, as well as the Optimus Q, one of the series of the Optimus product in Korea as well. And I guess everyone is showing the one device, so I should do the same. So this is a Verizon Alley. This is a GD product, Google Experience device, that we work very hard, very closely with Google for many months. And one thing I'm really proud of this product is I can confidently say that this is the world's best keyboard ever designed, helped through the Google engine. Thanks to Google again. So the reason that we are investing heavily on the Android is very simple. It's very rationalized. Number one is, of course, it's free and yet it's the best. Free is a very strong word. And second thing is openness, where the developer like you and myself can realize the creative thought into the reality. And third is obviously the very healthy ecosystem behind it. I'm very excited to, whenever I see going into the Android market, it's just, number of the applications, coming in, I don't know how many, on a daily basis, but I heard that the quarterly growth rate of the number of the application is over 70%, which is phenomenal. So without further ado, we, LG, is very much committed and convinced that Android is the chosen one to be succeeding on the leading the technology in mobile places. So we are ready to contribute to the new technologies for such as the dual core, dual display, and HD support, as well as the LTE. In terms of the LTE long-term evolution, we are the first company ever deliver the product, deliver the technology, as well as we are the number one, the world's best technology provider in this place. And the last thing I want to touch a little bit on our endeavor on reaching out to developers worldwide. We have the website called developer.lgmobile.com, where you can connect it to the all the developers worldwide. As well, you can submit or suggest any constructive suggestion, idea, where we can more innovate it, and motivate to delivering the better and creative product into the consumer spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, I'm Fraleigh, and I'm the director of the Developer Platform Tools and Technical Services team at Motorola. And Motorola decided quite a while ago to base a huge percentage of its phone portfolio on Android. Android to us is the perfect mobile operating system for us to grow our future on. It's open, it's well architected to grow and evolve over time, and it allows us to spend our time innovating on top of it and to bring consumers and developers cool and unique features on which they can build applications and experiences to wow the world. And we don't have to invest in re-architecting a mobile operating system from scratch. We get everything we need from Android, so we're very excited about that. We've launched more than 10 different distinct devices in over 100 different regions, distributors, retail markets, and carriers around the world. We've extended our Android portfolio all around the world, and we're very excited by what is out there. We're getting rave reviews on a number of our different products. And the one thing I've seen standing in the sandbox this week is that everyone likes a different product. Someone will come up and say, wow, this is the greatest keyboard, this has the best slider experience. Someone else thinks a different phone is better. And that's going to be the same way with all the different applications you create. You're creating applications that are just going to wow many different segments of the market, whether it's a productivity application, a game, a multimedia application. You're creating different experiences that are just going to wow consumers out there and drive adoption of your applications. Motorola has a very long history of working with developers, and I'm part of the MotoDev developer network that engages with people like you every day. We take all the great resources that Google's created for you to enable you to create Android applications and provide you with the additional resources you need to understand how to make your applications work well on our devices. Whether it's talking about unique features on our handsets and how to create one application that works across the entire array of Android devices, yet when it's running on our application takes advantage of a unique feature. So there's no fragmentation. You've got one binary working everywhere. We've got resources for that. We have community-based discussion boards where you can ask your questions about how to develop for our handsets. And then we go around the world evangelizing Android to developers in all locations of the world. We did our first Android Developer Summit in San Diego last fall at CTIA. We went to Beijing in January, and we just completed a 2-week tour of Latin America, speaking to Android developers in Mexico City, Buenos Aires, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I can tell you that what you see here for Android enthusiasm in the US exists in all markets of the world. Everywhere we go, people are excited about creating applications for Android devices. They're excited about the power of the platform, and they're constantly coming up with things that amaze us. We've talked to developers all the time, but we're constantly seeing new ideas for applications, and we encourage you to continue to be innovative and work on all sorts of neat ways to bring your applications to market. It's us doing cool hardware features, cool software features that enable cool applications from you. It's the community that's what's driving the growth and adoption of Android, and we're really excited to be a part of that.
Thank you. So the next part is we're going to open up the floor to questions. You can either come up to one of the 2 mics in the aisle to ask questions, or you can enter it in the wave with the URL. And looks like we have...
First question to Samsung. We're glad to hear that you guys are committed to Android. Great. What about Bada? Is it competition? How do you see that long term?
Thank you for that question. So I think the one thing we try to do at Samsung is make sure we have choices for our customers, whether it be carriers or the end user. And Android's a great platform, and we're making a huge investment in that platform and shipping an enormous number of devices with that platform. But in certain geographical locations or with certain carriers or certain geos around the world, it isn't just appropriate. We want to make sure everyone has a smartphone, and Bada allows us to do that as a secondary solution. The other thing I'd say is, you know, it is a very large domain. Bada is built on Samsung's own existing platform, which we've had for a long time, and we'll be exposing APIs as well. But I don't think they're in conflict.
Okay. Gentleman on the left.
Is it okay? So first, I would like to thank you all for coming to interface with us developers. So I have 2 questions, and they can be answered by any of you. The first question is, on the iPhone platform, there's certainly a large segment of iPhone users who the developers can market their apps for, but there's an even bigger segment, and that is for iPod Touch users who have a device that is less expensive and doesn't have a cell phone radio. And so far, we haven't seen anything like that for Android, where it is a small form factor like what we have that fits in the pocket but is less expensive and doesn't have a cell radio. And I want to get your thoughts on that and whether or not you 4 manufacturers will be considering that. And my second question is, currently in the released products, we have almost 2 or 3 classes of devices where some are Google experience and some are customized UIs, and some might even be something else, might not even be recognizably Android. And right now, for our consumers going to the store to buy a product, they might not necessarily know that a product is running Android and will run my application. So I want to get your thoughts on how, on the marketing side, we can message better to the end users that this is indeed an Android product and will run applications from the Android ecosystem. Thank you.
You want to take that?
Sure. I guess to address your first question, I can't comment on any future products, but we're always looking to innovate in terms of form factors and different market segments. So I think as you saw when Android first started, it was going after the higher end smartphone market, and you've started to see it come down into some of the lower tiers in terms of handsets that are coming out from the different manufacturers. So I think as you see the years go on and we move through 2010 and into 2011, you're going to see Android on a wider variety of phones in the market. And I'll let some other people comment further. In terms of marketing, we do a lot of work with our carrier customers in terms of how they want to market the device. And so it's definitely going to vary a little bit on a per customer basis, but we are doing a lot more to evangelize the applications that are available for the phones. And again, that depends very much on the market demographic of a particular phone. Is this a high-end multimedia phone? You're going to see more emphasis on the multimedia apps. If it's is it going after the teens? You might see more emphasis on social networking and games. And so we do this in partnership with the carrier or the retail operator, depending on the market segment of the phone.
Yeah, I would agree with Lori that it does depend. The way that the Android flavor of a particular product that we make is marketed does really obviously vary by geography and by customer. But there's an old kind of saying in our business that the end user doesn't care what platform it is. But I think that that's changing, actually, and I think the strong reflection of our conversations with our customers, our operator customers, is that, in fact, Android is a great way to help to make, to sell a device. So I see it really, really becoming an important part of the identity of a lot of our products, and I think the people, the carriers that'll be carrying them, see the Android brand as an important way because, your applications and the extensibility of the open platform are what are going to continue to sell those products. So I think it's going to be a big deal.
Can I? Okay, the first question is LG Electronics has a variety of the, I would say, full spectrum of the consumer devices. We definitely have the plan to utilize the benefit of the Android operating system on a lot of different, consumer devices. However, the point being that you mentioned the iPod-like device. Probably we need to, if you have some constructive idea, and then let's talk afterward. Second question, though, is, we ultimately deliver the product to the consumer, and consumers, there's always carriers. Carriers have different needs and customized requirement because they feel like they know how to address consumers' need on their specific market. For instance, if you look at China, legality matter, we can't really utilize the greatest, Google mobile service on that region. So I'm sure that carriers and different in marketing, they utilize different application service to better address the consumer's needs. So we are not trying to put too much different way of the Android, but for a certain marketing, certain region that we have to to respect whatever the market constraint. Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think Android does offer a lot in the way of convergence as well, with all these different devices running very similar or the same operating system. And obviously, as a large manufacturer like Samsung covers a variety of different product portfolios, we see that as an opportunity. The other thing I'd say to the second part is, much like my colleagues did here, is that we need to inform the channel and make sure people are aware when people are being sold handsets that the messaging is correct. I think we are actively working on that.
Yeah, I think the one last thing to add is, obviously, we've been working very closely with our handset manufacturing partners and also carriers around the world. And the consistent theme we're hearing is that, especially on the carrier side, that there is a clear understanding that application is important. And we're working very closely with them, number one, to make sure Android market is on these devices so that the user can get to the applications that you guys are building. And second is that in many cases, a lot of these marketing campaigns actually center around applications. And so, what all these carriers are looking for, they're looking for compelling, awesome application to help them sell more devices. So the more you can build these great applications that help differentiate how Android devices are better than some other devices, the more eager these carriers and many of these partners here on stage will be willing to invest to leverage to help sell devices. So let me take a question from the wave. And I actually saw a few questions along the same theme. And the theme is, we're developers. We really would like to have root access to the device so that we can really accelerate and do interesting things. So let me throw it to the panel, see what you guys think about that.
I think we earlier, provided kind of the access to the developer, but guess what? Last trained developer made a, I guess not a good, image for our devices. So I guess the message I'm trying to, deliver here is that we are very much open to open up to the, development, platform to the developer worldwide. However, we'd like to set up some sort of like a protocol, like whoever sign up and register and certify developer can get our a developer image, so on and so forth.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think most people don't need access to the bootloader. If you're a regular developer, which a majority of developers are developing apps, you do not need rooted bootloaders. If you're trying to hack the kernel or something, that's a different story, but that's a very small percentage of the people in general. And maybe that can be addressed in a different way. We are trying to make sure that the regular app developers are well taken care of and can use regular devices for their development.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, obviously, most of you guys are interested in making applications, and there are contributors to the overall Android platform, that are doing system software. That's a different category. Our view is, you take a really well-architected platform like Android, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with applications. In our sandbox, we're showing off a bunch on this little mini phone where we basically came up with a zooming capability to do one-handed zooming to avoid this need for pinching on a small screen, and all done entirely in application code, and we're sharing the sample code that you can use it in your applications as well. So I think that our good architecture makes it possible to a lot of your creativity to come alive with the applications without access to all the rest of the bottom of the platform.
Okay, want to take a question to the right?
I just wanted to add to that. So you say that you don't allow people root access because it kind of messes with that, the environment that developers are building the platform for. But wouldn't you assume that whoever's rooting their device, if you were to open it up, would know that there are consequences, that applications might not run how they expected? And my actual question was, do you guys have any plans to do any serial device kind of external accessories? I know I've seen it with a few devices already have serial interfaces, but they're disabled in the kernel. But I was curious if, on the iPhone anyway, there's GPS accessories, or if you're in a building, GPS doesn't really work, so people make external antennas that the app can talk to, and there's stereo integration, and I'm just curious if you guys plan to add that to any of your devices.
Accessories.
So Motorola has a long history of doing accessories for our devices through our companion products group. In terms of a lot of really specific tight integrations with Android, we unfortunately haven't announced a lot that we can talk about yet, but it's something that Motorola does invest a lot in.
Same. Accessories are great business. I mean, traditionally Sony Ericsson's made fantastic margins on accessories, so I'm sure we're very interested in it.
Well, I mean more from a developer standpoint. If I was going to make an app that would have an accessory that would complement it versus just using pre-made accessories from the carrier, do you guys plan to I guess move in that direction? Yeah,
we just have to consider it on a case-by-case basis. We definitely are looking at it.
Yeah, and the platform itself is, for example, support USB. For example, over in the sandbox, we have Square using the audio jack and actually build an accessory allow you to swipe credit card. So there's actually many ways through Bluetooth to already connect with the device and to build accessories. So we're starting to see more and more these interesting, innovative accessories that people are building through the standard APIs, a standard way of connecting with many Android devices that all these guys are building.
Thank you.
Okay. Question to the left?
Yes, I wanted to obviously say thank you once again for you guys coming out, and by all means, it's not an attack at all, but just curious. And that's an open-ended statement.
I'm looking for a shield.
Yeah. I'm curious to find out if there's any. Yeah. Put on the raincoats now. Is there any future talk about any type of longevity to the battery life for these devices? Through development, I've experienced some problems with the longevity of the batteries. Most of them only lasting about a half a day through general use or my extenuous use. Is there any plans to maybe roll out a battery that lasts 3 to 4 days, something with a solar connection to it, or something that we can actually plan on taking it for the weekend and not coming back to it?
Well, obviously, battery life is very important, and we take it very seriously. I will say, just as my own pitch here, the Galaxy S has 20% better battery life in terms of its monitor power requirements than the previous one because of the Super AMOLED display. So we are very actively working on that. And just the final pitch here, this is not only 20% better battery saving, but it's actually 20% brighter as well, so you get the both worlds. And I think, like all the manufacturers, we're constantly measuring that and seeing the ways trying to improve.
Same here. I mean, the first thing recommendation too is change your auto synchronization period, so get a lot better.
I have 13 emails.
All right. Well, battery is one of the it's one of the major technology investment we are putting on it. So we noticed that especially smartphone, and even smartphone get connected to all different consumer devices like TVs and all different devices. So things get it's got more attention to it, and there's also different technology that solars through the charging technology as well coming in. So that is something area that we're also investing on.
Motorola has a unique social networking service called MotoBlur on some of our handsets. And what this does is rather than having 5 or 10 different apps that are constantly polling the network at different intervals and starting the data connection, polling, shutting down, it batches the updates into push updates. And so this is something that we've done through the experiences we create for consumers to optimize the battery life. And so we're taking those experiences that we've created for our own software and trying to figure out how we can enable developers to take advantage of this as well to improve the overall experience for the consumer on the handset.
Yeah, and I think the last thing to add to it is it really is a partnership with all of you too, in terms of how you build your application, how often you hit the network, how often you put something on the screen. All of these have a huge impact. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've, my relatives are using an Android phone, not really understand what's happening under the hood, and they don't understand why the battery's draining meanwhile they're getting all the emails in the back. And so I think there are a lot of things that all of you can do to help kind of reduce the amount of battery, the amount of power you're using on each of these devices.
Great. Thank you very much.
So let me kind of go to the wave. So I also saw a few questions about updates. Obviously, we just announced Android 2.2, and so I'm sure everybody have big questions that what are each of your plan in terms of updating the devices that developers may have to the next release.
So we will be pushing out Android 2.2 to the Droid over the next few months. We're working on the exact details of the schedule in conjunction with Google as well. It's announced, it's not fully out in open source yet, as well as with Verizon in terms of how to time that update. And we do actually have a public website where we post information about when we expect to roll software updates out to our various phones in different regions of the world. And it's actually a pretty complex problem because there's not just, we have more than one phone. On top of Android, we build a number of different experiences. There's carrier software, there's preloaded applications, and unfortunately at times it's a little bit more complicated process than some would like in terms of rolling out updates. And so it's something that we do in conjunction with Google and our carrier partners in terms of getting those updates out to everyone. And so we do publish that information for developers and consumers to be aware of.
I think same scenario, same situation that we have for a Google Experience device that we get a huge support from Google for a device that are not a Google device. We have a web interface that reaching out to every single device automatically over the web. However, to identify which carriers, which version, countries, was a little bit tricky. But however, we do have an infrastructure, can automatically consumer get into the device, can automatically over the web. Yeah,
so in terms of Samsung, obviously, because we're reaching a lot of different markets. There's different strategies, but generally, Samsung's always trying to make sure the handsets are updatable. For those working with carriers, obviously we have to work with the carrier through those channels. But for the open market, I would advise everyone to download the new Keys program, which is Samsung's sync program with your PC. And you can find a link on that, I think, at innovator.samsungmobile.com, and that'll have the latest builds available for your handset if there's new updates available, depending on your geo, etc. But it is a complex problem, and we are definitely very focused on it.
Yeah, so as with my colleagues here, we're also going to be updating our devices during 2010. We've got announcements on that. That's also on our developer site. You can find out the schedule for that as we work it out with Google. We are in many, many markets as well, obviously globally, and there's so many. This is one of the hardest things to do when it comes to continually making a product that satisfies a wide variety of users. But we're definitely committed to staying current. It's really the only way that that the innovations that are introduced in a very aggressive way into Android can become more stable and then exposed to developers, and you can take advantage of all that stuff. So you're definitely going to see us keeping to that schedule.
Thank you, Bill. Question to the right.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, guys, for giving us the time today to talk to us. Fragmentation is one of the words, I know we're touching on that now, but it's one of the words that keeps getting thrown around all the time, and I think partly that's due to Google. They're constantly now, this month, updating their list of which versions, and as developers and consumers, I guess my question is mainly at the gentleman from Samsung. You guys, I know you guys are pretty focused on TouchWiz right now, but the Moment, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the first devices in the US carrier market to get 2.1 before a lot of the other devices, and I think, hope that's because it's a stock Android device. And my main question is Samsung committed to also coming out with stock Android devices to us? Most of us here in the room are definitely what's considered power users. Are you guys committed to coming out with more stock Android phones that we hope will get updated to the newest version before the rest?
Thank you. So that's really good feedback. And it's part of the reason we come to these developer forums is to get feedback and to hear what you're looking for as well. We are, as I said, as you mentioned, updating our handsets in the field, and we will continue to do that. Specifically around TouchWiz, we are evolving that, and exactly what its configuration is still under development, but I really do appreciate your feedback.
Okay. Next question on the left.
Actually, my question is related to the previous question. This also, I would like Eric to maybe comments as well. For instance, Motorola has a phone which has 2 screens. LG has an Android phone has the longest screen, and Samsung has a phone has 2 cameras. All these are great add-on to the phone. However, it created problems for the developers to develop cross handsets Android applications. What are the efforts has been taken to ensure the compatibility of Android applications across different manufacturers? Actually, my second question is that there are 3 companies on the panel list has alternative platforms. There's the opinion that after all the lower-end manufacturers are able to produce Android-based smartphones in a short time, 6 months or 2 years, there will be no space for other operation systems or lower-end side. What's your comments on that one? Thank you.
So I'll comment mostly on your first question. Every single device Motorola has shipped is compliant with the Android platform. It's passed all the required tests from Google to ensure compliance. If you look at some of the unique features we've created, if you look at the Motorola Backflip, it has a unique navigation device on the back of the device called the Backtrack. It is possible, despite the fact that this is completely unique to Motorola, to write an application, a single binary, that will work across all of the Android devices, yet when running on the Motorola device takes advantage of the Backtrack, all within a single binary. So, to that extent, when we do come out with innovations, we ensure that they're compliant, we ensure that they don't create fragmentation, and then we publish information to developers on how to take advantage of it and how to properly code your application to ensure that consumers have the best experience.
Same here in the LG Electronic. Every Android product we release to the market, went through the Google CTS compliance in testing suite, and we get certification from the Google before the product get launched. So I don't think we're making any fragmentation here. On top of that, whenever we make an extension, we submit it back to the open source community for getting back to to nurture the Android developer network.
Yeah, I think very similar. We also pass CTS, and I think it's now the compatibility documents online that anyone can actually go and read and see for themselves exactly what the test criteria is and the requirements of each document. That's now public. So I think it's at developer.android.com.
Source.android.com.
Source.android.com. So please check that out. You can understand what we're working on in terms of that. And the other thing I'd say is we also have extensions like front-facing camera. And we will make those as pure add-ons. And as someone else mentioned, you can write an application that's generic. It can specialize its behavior at runtime if it finds that extra functionality like front-facing camera is available, or do something else if it's not. So that really is up to the developer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Android is growing so fast, and one of the reasons is that there are a variety of products that are made out of it, and some of them are going to be, have front-facing cameras, and some won't, and some will be, very expensive, and some will be very affordable. So that's part of the cause of success. But as with everybody else, everything is fully compatible, and we, Sony Ericsson, are also contributing back a lot of what we do. You can go to check out a lot of what those contributions are, and it's a dialogue. Technology is always a dialogue, and so if there's a direction that we think the products need to go and the platform needs to support, we found a very receptive ear in Google for how to take that platform so it can generally support something that we may add to make a particular product really shine.
Thank you. I think the only thing I just want to make sure you guys don't miss it is that please go to source.android.com. We've published some web pages around compatibility, and on there we have a compatibility definition document and also the compatibility test suite. So now all of you can see, in terms of the set of specifications and the test suites that all of these partners are building the handset against, and kind of get a better sense in terms of how, what we're doing, what kind of tools we put in place to make sure these handsets are indeed compatible. Okay, I see we're stacking up here. So the question, all right?
My question is directed mostly at Motorola. There's been a couple news articles recently that you guys dropped the Google network location provider in favor of Skyhook. Could you give us some kind of history there, or what was the reasoning, and has that created any friction with Google as far as creating Google branded devices?
Sure. So I think some of the write-ups of the Skyhook press release were actually mis-write-ups. We haven't dropped the Google network location provider from the handsets. We have chosen to try to integrate Skyhook's technology alongside of it to provide a variety of choice for consumers and developers in terms of how they can get network location information. Because sometimes you're in a location where you might not be able to get accuracy from one type of device or one type of provider, and so there's different ways of doing it. But we're not dropping it, and we're not replacing it. Some of the initial write-ups were wrong, and so we worked with Google and with Skyhook to get those corrected.
Thank you.
Okay, question on the left.
Hello guys, my name is Ciaran. I'm from Where. I used to be Ulocate, one of your preload partners. First of all, thank you for coming and for cherishing Android. My question is about the same thing, fragmentation. We deal with a lot of carriers and Android versions, different OEMs, UIs, and then permutation of all. We create this fragmentation. Do you guys work together among OEMs?
We never talk. I never talk to them.
And it takes a long time for a device. Why does it take so long for a device to receive an upgrade from 1.5 to 2.1, like Hero? I know HTC is not out there, but do you guys work together to, I don't know, iron this out?
Lucky me, I'm still holding the mic.
We're fighting for it. So
the length of time to do an upgrade depends on a variety of things. First, the version of Android has to fully reach open source. The day Google releases it, the source or talks about it, the source code's not out there, and that's not always, I think, immediately known to all the consumers and developers. So the source code has to hit the open source market. The compatibility test suite has to be fully published. We have to get our software integrated and tested on top of it. And depending on the handset, you know, you've heard discussions of stock Android versus more highly differentiated. You know, our phones that have Moto Blur are more highly differentiated. And so the integration and testing of that software on top of a new version of Android takes more time. The integration and testing of a new version of Android on a different hardware platform than what have been the feature device for that version of Android takes more time. The integration of testing of preload applications of carrier-specific requirements takes more time. And then there's the whole carrier lab cycle and test cycle that takes a lot of time. And it's really hard to explain all of that to the consumer, to the developer. You know, we'd like it to be faster. We're constantly working to improve our ability to do this. And we try and get information out to developers, you know, as readily as we can. So it's something we're trying to work on, and we know it's hard.
Same sequence, and corporate thing probably missed this, chipset that has to also upgrade to the latest version, as well as when you're building up the newer version of the Android for the consumers that are out there, you always have to evaluate what are the applications being customized for certain carriers, certain languages, certain region, blah blah blah. Because otherwise, you cannot really ship in the up-to-date version to America, like 2 months after, and then, for instance, like somewhere else in other countries, like 6 months after. You have to marching on same speed, addressing the number of different versions and simultaneously. That's why it's taking a little while, but we are absolutely trying to improve the speed of the upgrading process.
I don't really have anything to add. Samsung is very committed to make sure we can upgrade, but it is a complex process, as my colleagues have mentioned.
The only thing I would say is, you're a preload partner, I guess. So you benefit from your stuff working really fantastically with some of our devices, and you want that to continue to happen when we upgrade to the next version of Android. So as Lori said, there's layers of testing that stuff. We have to test it. Our operator partners have to test it. And man, I wish it was faster. So one thing that I wanted to add, in case anybody mentions it, is that when something about the Android market, when you do write your apps and put them in the Android market, you set max and min for versions of Android. And we were talking about this before, but if you want your stuff to appear like some of the companies that we've worked with, their stuff runs great on our products. But when an upgrade can happen sometimes, because of the way that they've uploaded it to the Android market, it can be momentarily not visible as downloading to our handset. So make sure when you put that manifest together, when you upload stuff, that you're following the upload path. You're following the upgrade path, excuse me, to make your products be able to continue to be visible to all of our products.
Yeah, let me just clarify, make sure everybody understands that. What we've done between the Android platform and Android market is give developers the flexibility when they upload the application to declare what version of Android OS they want the application to be visible to. Some developers may want to leave it open, so they would say, my application will work on Android 1.5 and anything beyond that. And we've seen a lot of cases when the app just works. Developers never seen these new devices, and the app just worked out of the box. In some cases, some developers are a little bit more conservative, for good reasons. They decided to say, I want my application only work on 1.5 and 1.6. And when that happens, when the user upgrades the device to, let's say, 2.1 or 2.2, then obviously that device is no longer visible to that application. So again, what we're trying to do is give you more tools. So you have more choices in how you want to structure your business, how you want to distribute your application. And so just keep that in mind, and then it's completely up to you on how you want to structure things.
Thank you.
Great. Question on the right?
Thank you. My question has to do with customization of settings and software applications for various operators. And I'd be interested in hearing from all of you, maybe even a question for Google. But I guess the lady from Motorola was talking about launching products to multiple operators, multiple regions. Can you provide any guidance or guidelines for how to customize your application or customize the settings to meet the particular needs of an operator.
Can you give an example? What do you mean by like a setting?
I mean, a really simple one would be like browser bookmarks. If you had, you know, you know, 3 or 4 operators within a single region, and you wanted to be able to customize those bookmarks for each operator.
So I'm not aware of specific customizations we do in that area, although it's entirely possible we do. If you want to, you know, talk more in depth, I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards, because I'm not aware of specific things. You know, in terms of handling operator requirements, you know, to the extent that they ask us to customize something that they feel is a strong requirement, as long as it doesn't violate the compatibility document and the device still passes CTS, if it's something that they feel is important to them and, you know, we come to agreement, then we make that customization for them. In terms of something specific, I'd be happy to talk with you more to understand the details and comment on a particular device.
Okay.
I mean, one recommendation would be use the network. And what I mean by that is you can have your application on the device determined what region is running in. And then from there, you can potentially download whatever's needed for that particular device. And so there are ways for you to do late binding and have the customization information come in later in the device, not as part of the initial download. That's probably the best way for you to kind of have more flexibility in how you build your application.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi. My question will be about sensors. So accelerometers and compass are standard now on Android, but what about new type of sensors? So what I understood is that it's up to the OEM, you know, to choose if they want a new sensor or not, and all these kind of things. And the question would be, how is that made available to the developers? Because each OEM will choose at different dates to have a new view type or not, and that means it won't be standard across all the platforms. So the OEM will make the API and the development, and how development can be sure that it will be the same depending, you know, it won't be dependent on the platforms they use.
Yeah, actually, let me try to field this one. A good example is front-facing camera. That in itself is a sensor. And we have had a couple of phones that actually start to come out that have front-facing camera. And what we actually did was we actually worked with the OEMs who are actually coming out with the products, and we provide suggestions how to structure the APIs. And what that does is, at least from a structure and syntax perspective, is somewhat similar across different devices. What that does also is put it on our radar, so that when we come out with the next release of the OS, you know, the way we're going to structure API will be roughly the same way, so that when you want to migrate application to support, let's say, the front-facing camera API in the future, when we have that, then it will be a very simple migration. And the challenge has always been, right, if we want to get a platform out there that works across all devices, at the same time leave it open for innovations, we have to make it possible innovations. And then it's, you know, us working closely to make sure that when these innovations come out, and especially on our side, when we see that, we see multiple OEMs, and you know, we talk to them all the time and say, you know, this is what's coming down the pipe, and we see a similar trend from multiple handset manufacturers, then obviously we're going to accelerate the development schedule to support that too.
So it means it's basically driven from Google. So let's take an example. Let's take a gyroscope, for example. People want to integrate a gyroscope. That means the OEM will come to you and say, I'm planning to do that. Can you propose an API? And then the OEM will most likely use it? Or?
I wouldn't go as far as say they come to us and say, can we propose API? The key thing about open platform is that this gives everybody the ability to innovate. What we try to do is based on information that we get to try to see some trend. Right. It doesn't make sense for us to add a new API for a new sensor and require it on all Android devices when only one manufacturer wants to do it. But when we see that multiple manufacturers want to do this, then that gives us a good indication that this is what's coming down the pipe. Maybe the price point is now low enough that it makes sense to integrate these type of sensors. So it's a collaboration, a partnership, at the same time making sure that the core of the platform is compatible across all devices while giving OEMs and carriers the ability to innovate.
Okay. And second question, more like a dream actually. Would it be possible to have a peek on what kind of sensors are coming up and what's the new things, you know, like the second camera, which is in some products, but maybe next generation? I mean, I would understand when you say, no, we won't want to disclose that, but if you have anything.
I guess you're not going to comment. Okay, let me take a question from the wave. I think the gist of this is, what about Flash? Any plan for Flash support in your products? Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I'd like to say that you know, Samsung's worked closely with Adobe before on other products to support Flash, and so I think this will be an opportunity for us to do so again in the future.
So similarly, you know, Flash is an important content type. Many of the markets where we're very strong, so we're definitely going to be there when the time is right.
I think LG, same position. We're working with Adobe as well.
We committed earlier this year to bringing Flash to Droid when it was ready for production. And so as Froyo is getting pushed out to Droid, and as the Flash 10.1 moves out of beta and into production, you'll see that coming to the Droid. As far as some of our other handsets, you know, watch for upcoming details.
Great. Question on the right.
Hi. I work for a carrier, and as we talk to the various manufacturers up there, we see that there's sort of this imaginary dividing line where there's Google's commonality and everything is the same up to a certain point, and then after that, a bunch of things get different. For example, tethered updates versus over-the-air updates versus all these other different ways. Or application preloading process for carriers is different across all of them. Or like the other gentleman was saying, bookmarking and things like that. Is there any thought by Google or the OEMs to get together and say, let's make some standardization a little bit further on down so that, you know, update processes are common across all the manufacturers. Carrier preloads are common across all the manufacturers, things like that, so that there's more commonality to it. Thank you.
One of the variables in those factors you just mentioned are our carrier customers and how they want to do things. So some of our approaches are in fact driven by that. And whether it makes sense, you know, the other way to look at it is, I guess, there could be one common approach that most of the network operators take with respect to some of these things, and maybe you guys should get together. But I mean, you know, I totally see your you know, in general, like I said earlier, technology is a conversation, and the conversation about commonality is always going on with Google and even between some of us, I'm sure.
Okay.
Android is an amazing open source operating system. How soon till we get an open source mobile phone? There are 13 open source hardware companies out there that have revenues totaling over 50 million, and they are on an upward trajectory.
So I think if you look at a mobile phone from any one of the four of us, you'll find that it's made up of a number of components. Some of it is open source IP, some of it is our own IP, and some of it is IP we license from many, many different partners that we embed into the handset, whether it's you know, chipset, something to accelerate something on a chipset, whether it's a multimedia codec, and it's more than just us that would have to come together to open source an entire mobile phone. It's much more than us, and you know, it's a lot of people's IP. And so I think as time goes on, more and more things start to become open source, and you know, maybe someday we get there, but it's not something that's going to happen probably in the next year or two.
I agree.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. I want to take one here.
When I first came to Android, I was attracted by the open source and being able to customize my phone how I wanted to. Yeah, and that's what drives me to be, you know, a root user and to be able to mod my phone. As such, I made applications to allow users to theme their phones. And I find it frustrating that, you know, non-root users don't have the ability to theme their phones or customize their phones to specific tastes, maybe to a football theme or a sport theme. Do y'all have any thoughts on providing theme support? I mean, it's as simple as using a content provider. A lot of y'all build desktop replacements like HTC does with their Sense. Do y'all have any comments? Google and the carriers.
So a specific question, theme support.
Correct.
We do certainly have a kind of widget-based, you know, approach, so user can personalize their, you know, theme on the home menu and other places.
Yeah, I mean, themes have actually, I think Sony Ericsson invented themes on phones, and we've, you know, been it's been a really, really important way for our products to be sold, and they're actually there's a business in personalization and themes. So within the constraints and possibilities of Android, we're very interested in personalization, and we're going to be adding more capabilities in the future. So I think it's one of the things that people want to do with their mobile devices is self-expression.
If I just add one more thing, not one more thing. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a developer website to respecting all the greatest comment from everywhere. So just join us and send us constructive suggestion, idea, or criticisms too. So we can be all learn and improving the Android platform and delivering creative and innovative service and product and quality to the consumer worldwide. So go to our developers.lgmobile.com and feel free to write up any suggestion you might have.
Okay, one last question, and probably can only have one person answer this since we're 30 seconds left.
Well, I had a question about the keyboards. A couple of you mentioned how great your new keyboards were. My first phone was the G1, and personally I think it's the best keyboard that's ever been on a phone. I think a lot of other people think the same way. What's taken so long to come out with this new greatest keyboard, or a keyboard without a space bar between the V and B, or keys that aren't mashed together? We had such a great example of what a wonderful keyboard should look like. Why hasn't anybody been able to duplicate that or even come close, really?
Keyboards are very, very subjective. And like I said earlier, I've talked to a lot of different people here at the show, and they walk up and everyone likes a different phone, everyone likes a different keyboard. And again, I think it comes back to who is the target customer for this phone? Is it a teen, which is going to have a lot tinier fingers than someone in their 30s? Who's the target demographic? What does the carrier want to see? Every phone goes through a lot of user trials before it ever comes back. And even once it's in production, feedback comes back, and that's incorporated into future designs. So, while you may think the G1 keyboard is the greatest keyboard in the world, someone else is going to think, having a phone with no keyboard is the greatest experience. And that's,
I can understand that.
And so it's really up to the target market and where that phone is going.
I just wanted to suggest you drop by LG, a sandbox. Really, seriously.
No, I will. I want to see it.
This is ordinary consumer would not notice, but this key is not equal size, equal height, each key has a different, variation of height and, space between each keys to making sure that we deliver the best keyboard experience. We work really hard with Google for this particular keyboard setting and the layout and even all different, key set.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. I think we're in borrowed time now, so I want to thank all of you being on the panel. And if you have more questions, all these folks we have 5 stations out there from different device manufacturers, so you can go there and ask away. Many more questions. Okay, thank you.